All right, so hey everyone, welcome back to the stream. And today we're going to be talking about building a cinematic riser in Reaktor. So I just want to welcome you back to the stream, and we'll be building this riser. This is perfect for transitions, drops, or sound effects in trailers and electronic music. If you're into sound design, then stick around and drop a fire emoji in the chat if you're really excited, because we're about to get into it. So we're going to start off and we're going to open up Reaktor, and once we open it up, you're going to see there's three different sections. One is the play section, one is the patch section, and one is the build section. We're going to jump into the build section today and build out our modular rack. And we're going to start off with a basic patch. We need a few elements: an oscillator, an LFO, a filter, state variable filter, and a VCA. So we're going to grab these components and we're going to wire them up. So the first component we're going to need is that note in. So that allows us to get notes in, MIDI notes, signals into our computer. And that's the first element that we're going to need. And the next elements we're going to need are an oscillator, a VCA, a filter, and I believe that's it for now. So let's wire those up and see what we get. So we're just going to wire that up. So we're not getting any sound because we don't have any amplitude. So we're going to turn the amplitude slowly up, and we're getting a tone. We can visualize that tone if we want to by bringing in the scope and plugging that into our filter. So we can see the waveform. It's a pure sine wave, and if I change this, the wave shape should change with it. So now we got a triangle wave. So there you can see we have a waveform showing on the oscilloscope, and now we're going to continue with our build, and I'm going to mute it out just so that everything is stable. And then we've added in our note in module for already, and we're going to bring in an LFO. So it's going to provide some frequency modulation, and we're going to use that LFO to modulate our oscillator. So I'm going to turn on the modulation depth on our oscillator, and we're going to change this waveform here that we were just changing manually. We're going to use our LFO to do it for us automatically. So when I re-enable, you can see that I put a little bit of modulation depth. I'm going to put a little bit more so it's more obvious what's happening. And we can adjust the speed a little bit as the waveform changes. So we got something edgy so far. I'm just gonna keep going with this, and we can add an LFO as well to our oscillator pitch. So we can modulate. We've already added it to our oscillator, so we can actually modulate our oscillator pitch up and down. So if we re-enable the oscillator, it should sound something like this. Or we can actually duplicate the oscillator, the LFO, and maybe assign it on another LFO if we really want to. I'm just gonna name these LFOs. Name the LFOs so I don't get confused as to which one is controlling what. So we've assigned different LFOs essentially. One is controlling the pitch and one is controlling the movement of the waveform. And that's shown, the waveform is shown here, and you can hear the pitch going up and down. You can get really crazy with it, or just keep it subdued. going to pause that out for a second. And we can really create that magic of that cinematic tension when we modulate the pitch and the filter over time. So we're going to use an ADSR envelope to shape the volume. So I'm going to bring in an ADSR. We're going to shape our volume, which is our amp. And I'm going to rename this to an amp envelope. So that's our amp envelope right there. And let's just make sure our panel is still in the order we need it to be in, or just reorganize it to where I can see what I'm doing and I know where each module is going. So I'm going to bring these up here. And then our VCA should go at the end of the chain. And then our envelope, filter, scope at the end. So that looks more like an order we want things to be in. So now we're going to add that. We've added that envelope. So I'm going to turn up the modulation depth on our amp so that we can play the notes in. I'm going to remove the LFO modulation depth on our modulation depth on the pitch for now, just because it's a little distracting. Then we're going to modulate the filter cutoff. So I'd rather use the LFO movement to modulate the filter cutoff rather than the oscillator movement. So I'm going to move that to the filter, and we're going to turn up the depth on that. We're going to turn down the speed on the LFO. And we can give it a more descriptive name like filter LFO, just so we know what it's doing. And we don't have to name it 2 anymore. We can just name it, we can just leave it as it is, filter LFO. And then I'm just going to turn down the modulation depth. So we are modulating this. Should be with the filter LFO. I want to use the filter to make it a little bit more dramatic, so it rises to the pitch. Okay. And we can add a little reverb and delay for some depth. So our final piece is adding that reverb and delay. And that's going to add a little depth to our sound, make it a little more together and more immediate. So I'm going to add a little bit of reverb. There we go. Gonna bring in the reverb, and we're gonna connect that up to our left and right ports, and there we go. Something more dramatic. I think that sounds pretty cool. Let me know what you think in the chat. And if you like this, hit that follow and join me tomorrow, or join me on our next session for another Reaktor sound design session. And let's go. That's all for today. So get creative and keep designing sounds. And I'll see you in the next one.